This is the morning after the night of the heat treat before, and I have to get down on my knees in front of the Rockwell test to see if my work is up to standard, if it passes muster. Right then, let's see, let's make a measurement. The moment of truth is upon me. That one reads 59.5. If you can see that. So that's good. That's quite good. That one's passed. Let's look at another one. This is another 4mm classic. Measure this one and see where he's at. Let's wait for the load to go down fully. And we're there. Moment of truth again. Let's test another one. Make sure we get that needle up on the top C reading. That's there. Release the sear. Just wait for it to settle. It's all looking good. And that's the 59.5 as well. Right, let's do one more. This is a 3mm, so it's slightly thinner. Let's just check this one. The position that I'm testing the blade at is just where the final bevel grind will be. But I'm fairly happy with the steel I'm using. It's very consistent. It's German steel, 01 grade. Just let that settle. That's almost there. Let's stop moving now. So we'll unload that. And that is not quite 59. There, you can just see. So they're all very good. They're all where I want them to be, plus or minus a little bit. These machines are accurate to within around about half a Rockwell point, especially in a workshop environment like this where you have different temperatures and dust particles, etc. And it's not laboratory conditions, but it gives me a good ballpark figure. I know my blades are where I want them to be, so I'm very confident I can build them up into good usable knives. So the Rockwell tester's done his job. Actually, he's not. I do make several tests. I haven't. I don't know if you can see. Let's have a look. I do make several tests actually along the edge, and there we are. I don't know if you can see on this knife. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but there are several dimples all the way along. And then I average them out and take the average reading, and they're all pretty consistent, to be honest with you. So Mr. Rockwell tester can go back to bed until he's needed again. Well, I've almost finished tapering this knife. I just got to mark up here to make sure I get the right height. Don't do any harm to draw a line down there, make sure we get it all flat. Just finish it off on a fairly fresh 120 grit belt. Well, although I can and have ground my bevels freehand, as you can see, I always practice a bit of freehand grinding because I always remove the sharp sort of corners off using a part worn belt, because when you use a new belt, which is what I'll do in a minute to finish the grind off, it keeps things cooler, but if you've got sharp edges there, this knocks your grit off. So you can see there's a bit of freehand grinding, but for consistency I always use a jig, because it just takes away one parameter you haven't got to worry about. It holds the knife level and it gives you less to think about, and gives you a consistent, even result. It's one of the secrets of getting a sharp edge. This is exaggerated because I've ground these on sort of about a 40 grit belt now. So the edge is very unrefined. And I don't know how well this camera is going to show it, but there's a big heavy burr all the way along, folded over, and you've got to create that burr. If you don't have a burr, you'll never have a sharp knife. Well, I've refined the cutting edge on these two knives down to a 120 grit, and they're beginning to look quite nice now. Still feel the burr, which is good, a good strong burr. So they'll stop out really nice, but I'm going to refine them even more. You'll notice if you look closely, this one shows it backwards. There's a little step. Now that's got to grind that step out and make a nice curve, a finger trawl area just there. And that's the next process. And then I'll refine the plunge lines and I'll refine the bevel, taking it to a 320. Well, hopefully you can see behind me, that's the small wheel attachment I just used to form the ricassos on the knives, and you can see how smooth it ran. It's really a great attachment that makes things much more accurate. So there's the ricasso. Now we've got a nice drop point and the ricasso area. That too will need to be refined to a finer grit at a later stage. But the next process on these two knives, there they are, is to finish off the bevel, and I'll transition to different grits and finish on a 320. Well, that's the two knives with their bevels finished and their plunge lines tidied up and their ricassos all cleaned up as well. It's really important to get that nice swoop in the a nice sort of a rounded curvature to the ricasso, because if you don't have that, you get a thing called a stress riser, which can go up there, and that can be a failure point, and the knife can actually break and snap. So by curving that radius there, that little where the grind ends and comes down, curving and polishing that in that plane, and also in that plane, in that plane and in that plane, it takes away that stress riser. So they're now finished. Ricasso's finished to 320, and so's the bevel, and I haven't stropped them yet, but they feel tacky to the edge. I got a bit of rubbish put through the letterbox, junk mail, so what better to test the edge on, and that's even before I've stropped it. So that will strop up to be extremely sharp, and so will that. That will also strop to be extremely sharp. Just brought you back to show you the finished knives, or the hand rubbing anyway. There you go. I don't know how well that's showing up. So they're all hand rubbed out now, and then time for me to fit the scales. Well, I might as well show you this as well. I got this far. Scales all ready to be glued up now, all degreased with acetone, all keyed up nicely, including the pins. One of the knives is having loveless bolts fitted, and there's the bolts there, and the other's having plain pins. So that's what I'm going to do now. Glue them up, and then I'm going to go in for my lunch. Applying the glue, which is G-Flex epoxy. You can see how all the little holes and are all sort of filled up. And they form glue pegs when you squeeze it all together. And all the little divots are all filled up with glue. They all form glue pegs and stop it from coming apart. It'll all squeeze out when I... There, you see that. So I'm going to clamp this one up now, and then tomorrow I'll shape that handle. Finish the knife. I'm just assembling this knife now, which is the one with the tapered tang and the loveless bolts. Each bolt's got a screw slot in, so it's a messy job. I should be wearing gloves really, I suppose. You can't go wrong with it, as long as you've made your recesses and drilled your holes correctly. It pulls it in each side, and then as I apply pressure to the bolt, the screw rather, it will you'll see the epoxy squirting out. You should start to see the epoxy squirt out in a minute. There you can see it's just tighten that one up. And so all that epoxy squeezes out and fills all the little gaps as well, and gives you a very secure handle indeed. And there's all the spare epoxy that's come out of it. So I'll clean these up now and put them aside to dry, and that's these ready for shaping tomorrow.